Okay, so today we are working on our PLC/PD. We are on cross-curricular learning experiences. You guys know I threw this up. Who knew we had so much in common? Have any of us heard of the cross-curriculum projects before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. That's great because it's going to make it much easier to understand and to go through. I've done a lot of research into this, and I've talked to my peers before about trying to get together, and through my research and my readings I have found that there's nothing more meaningful than when children have experiences that teach them multiple things. Now, we know that they have multiple intelligences and learning styles and things like that, but to truly be able to do a project that crosses the boundaries of different contents is huge, because the kids always see us as, well, I'm English now, I'm in English room. I'm social studies now, and this is what it is. They treat the content with the personality of the teacher sometimes. You know, I hate math because I can't stand this one teacher. And you're like, wow, you could love math. And I mean, hopefully you have a teacher that builds a good relationship with you and does these true valued experiences that make you love math. So don't judge the content because of the person that you have, and don't judge the person because of the content. So the hope is that we can do some cross-curricular learning experiences for our students. This caught my eye when I was looking it up because, you know, our beloved principal does this all the time, where he likes to take the key words that he hears all the time and put them together. And you have learning, information, knowledge, content, words, students, activities, integrate. I love modeling right here, creative, flexible. I mean, that's one of the best things about our building is while we're staying on pace and on our curriculum and everything else, we're so flexible. You know, I mean, if Miss Honora needs one of the kids, she can just call and say, hey, can I have them for so long? And I'll say, yep, as soon as we're done with this. Or, you know, so we really do have a great ability to do some meaningful experiences here. And if we can get them out of the building, I think it's even better. So obviously we know how students learn. How we teach, that's another thing. If kids learn through lecture, maybe they're auditory, right? Note-taking, sometimes you genuinely need to write things down. Repetition, which I think is more of a math thing, the constant practice and the understanding of it. Same thing with labs and science. Right. You really need to practice. Yeah.
Foreign languages like that.
Foreign language, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And cooking, you know? Sports, yeah. You're going to have to practice over and over and over again. Hands-on seems to be most of our students' favorite thing. They really do just learn from hands-on, you know, which I know science gets to do all the time, and I know social studies loves to do as well. You might not have as many hands-on experiences in English, but depending on how you teach it, you really do.
Yeah,
because I know your art.
I try to incorporate.
Oh yeah.
I know one thing they say is show me twice and tell me once.
Right, right. And that's the same thing with me. You can tell it to me, and I'm like, gotcha, let me see. I'm very visual, so let me see what you're talking about. And that was even my training on cross-curricular learning activities. I really needed to see. I had to see multiple projects so that I could myself go, there's the math, there's the science, you know. Experiences, I added because I meant like actual experiences. Going out of the building or having the people come in. When Miss Honora had the Jewish Foundation come in, and they brought that box with all of the different items that she had ran away from the Holocaust in. It was what was inside of her box. That was extremely meaningful because you had a survivor of the Holocaust talking to these students that think they've been through a lot. And then they were able to look at the actual objects that they took. Like, why would this cup mean so much? So those experiences that we can give them that are more than just the stories that we have or the things that are in the book. Pictures are great, but I mean, to really get to meet someone would be awesome. Videos, I mean, who doesn't use videos, right? I mean, every one of our subjects needs videos. Writing, I don't have as many students that want to write, but I do know that there are a lot of students that by writing it out, you know, by explaining it, or, you know, it just helps. And then drawing, because a lot of people don't even believe in this one, but when we were talking about it at one of our pre-service a couple years ago, it was a new type of note-taking where they draw it.
Yeah,
they draw a connection. and it's like, you think the kid's doodling. What Miss Boyle, when we're in the faculty meetings,
That's all I do.
that's all she does. We're sitting right next to her, and I look over, and she's drawn 14 people, and you know, all these things. And anyone else would look and say, "Why is she off task? Why isn't she paying attention?" She is.
Much better.
Yeah. So our drawing is those very creative people, the ones that they're not looking off into space. They're not, you know, doodling and not paying attention. This is the way that their brain can focus on the other thing. So imagine if we could tap into all of these different things in one project.
I have
Yeah.
comment. All of those things are necessary at different times. One thing I like to do is Socratic
Seminar?
Yeah, Socratic
Yes.
seminars.
That's good.
Because the kids, we sit in a circle, which
Yep.
is how my classroom is arranged. We discuss whatever the topic is, and we bring our own experiences, so we learn from each other. So it's not me telling them, you know, how to think or what to do,
Yeah.
but together
Yeah.
we come to some conclusions or observations.
Yeah. When I've had small classes and I haven't really,
Yeah, you
they
can't
won't
with
do it or whatever.
huge-
In my own way, I try to be different people.
Yeah.
And so, you know, one of the most important things is connecting the material to their real life. And so, even when I'm speaking about the different political parties that started in the beginning of our, the foundation of our nation, I try and connect it to, and those people think this today, and that's the people, the party that's this today. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, and then I'll even flip it and I'll say, but think of it this way, at your house, it's kind of like if mom and dad, and if you can give them 4 or 5 different ways, someone's gonna pick it. So even if I've only got 1 or 2 kids in my class, and I can't do a full Socratic seminar, we can even put a video up of one and have them rate it or reflect on what they saw and if they agree or disagree. So yeah.
I have one. It's when you was talking about the content and the person and how kids associate both of them.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about cross curriculum, it's amazing how kids can take something in reference to like in math and add something like English, and then you bring it to real life.
Yeah.
Because they want to know, how does this apply to me
Yes.
in real life
Why do I need to
situations.
know
Yeah.
So based on that, it's it's a better learning experience for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Kind of like when we do our, what is it, Miss Willis? We do career day, and we have them come in for career day, and their ability to sit there and say, I know you think you're not going to use this, but trust in my job right now, I'm using it.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, Mr. Slaughter's wife comes in, and she's a counselor. She's like a psychiatrist, a therapist. And for Miss O'Nor's psychology class, she would be one of those people that goes, make sure you pay attention in psychology class, because it helps you better understand yourself and the people that you encounter. You never know that what you open yourself up to. Yeah.
I just had veterans come in and talk to him about PTSD.
Yeah. And that's one of those experiences. I mean, and I remember he came in and he was just happy to say what he needed to say, and the kids genuinely cared. At first they were like, oh, this is gonna be like one of those, there was war, people got hurt. But like when he opened up and just started saying, the kids were enraptured by what he was saying. Even if some of the teachers were like, oh my gosh, did he mention a book? Like, you know, like it was awesome, because the kids were just going, dude, he's real.
Right.
He's being real.
It's not a lecture. It's coming.
Exactly. You know, we have to be real.
I
for the
remember
kids.
one time when I was in the military, and I was with a group of guys, and it was teaching us in reference to distance.
Yeah.
And with the distance, they say, hey, if you go beyond 20 feet, you could blow up based on based on what's down there.
Yeah.
Well, then guys was like, what's 20 feet?
Yeah.
See, math. That was simple math.
I think 20 feet's like a click, or is that 40 feet? I don't remember, but like one click when they say that with how many?
See, what they teach
I
in
would
the
know that.
military is walking.
6 or more yards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
is walking yards.
Yeah.
You know, how many yards you cover in ground.
Yeah.
And each person can be just a little slightly different, but still, that's how important it became.
Wow.
So math became extremely important.
Important, yes.
It was a matter of survival.
Yes.
Yeah. And then when you think about it, the combination, just in that, imagine that one of the projects that was given out was, how far can you walk before you reach the landmine? So you're using math, You're going to write a reflection about it. Miss Willis is going to have to talk about the soil type that's around it, because 20 feet's what they say, but what if it's 18 feet because it's loose soil?
Yes.
You know, and then all of a sudden you go to step and it moves it, and there you go.
Or
I'm going to have to talk about the country that it's in and the environment you're in. You're hot.
Yeah.
You drip sweat on a landmine. All of the different ways that we could take even something in one class. This doesn't have to be a 5-block project.
Right.
This could be something that in one class throughout that week that kid sees in every single block.
Yes.
And they do this element with Miss Boyle, and they do this. And the idea that everyone, first of all, it's teamwork on our part. All of us are now on board on the same thing. We know what we want the kids' end goal to be. We know what we're trying to teach them, and they see it. They see, well, Miss Willis and Miss Honor and Miss Boyle and Daniel and Woods, they must have sat down and discussed this, which means whatever we do in their class, they're going to sit down and discuss as well. And it helps them see that we are a team. It's not, I don't come here for just my paycheck or it's just a job. I'm here for you. And we take the time to stay after school and do PLCs. So how can we combine contents? Obviously, we recognize that there's multiple learning styles. We need to find 2 or more curriculum standards that align. Now, even if that were Miss Honor teaches world geography and psychology, if she had a kid that was in both, she could technically do a cross-curriculum in her own content. She would be able to say, what's the psychology of being a refugee from Syria and being told that you can't come to anywhere? So I think that this was the picture that really summed it up for me, was it's all of us trying to find the puzzle pieces that make a whole student. You're working on every part of the kid, their emotional safety, their mental acuity, their physical strength. If we had a gym teacher in here, he'd be right on board. There's a few that I found that include PE that are going to touch on multiple subjects. So the idea is that the kid can't be complete unless he has everything he needs. And we're here, and we're everything he needs. So why wouldn't we work together to create the best experience for them as possible? And that's kind of where I'm going. I believe in it. I truly do. This I grabbed because I know that you guys, some of you are very analytical the way I am and you want to see things. So interdisciplinary approach to teaching and learning. So you apply, integrate, and transfer knowledge. Certain things that don't usually get touched on in one subject can be brought into another, and it's going to affect yours. Yes, they have to know equations, but let's make that word problem something related to world geography. And now all of a sudden you're trying to figure out how much water is needed during the drought in this area, and that's his math problem. And then Miss Willis is going to say, so let's look at what happens to this environment during a drought. And now the whole thing is coming back around. Increased motivation. It's data, it's facts, it's statistics. It shows kids come to school when they have genuine learning experiences. If every single day they're looking at people putting notes on a board and lecturing and sitting at their desk and it's just read this, write that, they don't. Today's student is changing. They are completely different than they were when I was younger. And the way that we teach them has to change. We have to use more technology, we have to use more projects, more hands-on. We have to stimulate them because they're being stimulated constantly.
Yeah, that's a good
The
point.
information's at their fingertips constantly. I never went to Chuck E. Cheese when I was younger. And the first person I met that mentioned Chuck E. Cheese said they took their kid every single week, and I went,
Oh my gosh. Overstimulation.
right? And that's what I thought. I was like, my kids, like, they read and they play with little things. Every week you go to Chuck E. Cheese, and now we have kids that can take themselves to Chuck E. Cheese. The video games that they play, they have a lot more fun stuff happening than we're giving them. And so maybe we should step it up. It improves the learning. You know that. You know very well from your time in college, from your time in here, from every PLC and PD that we've done here, that when you have more things being dealt with, you get more meaningful learning. They can see the value of what they're learning. It makes more sense. Less isolated assessments and more quality, authentic performance tasks. Take this test, take this quiz. Do you know this vocab word? Can you use this correctly? Do you understand these numbers? Yes, I understand that we need that summative data. We need a little formative data. We need to see where they're at, and I get that. We need numbers. Data is very important. I know that a kid shouldn't be a number. but we do need to see what his number is. But imagine if that's the only number we get.
That's good.
What is that kid but a number?
Right.
So give him the quiz and give him the test, but in between, teach him what's on the quiz and what's on the test so that he'll remember it forever. You know, so that she'll be able to then one day write a job application the correct way and provide for her family, because she had a genuine sit down with someone from HR who explained, oh honey, grammar, psychology, you should work on it, you know, something like that. So collaborating with our colleagues, I found these and I thought they were awesome. So your brainstorm could be as simple, you could sit down yourself and just do this and decide, here's my theme. My theme is soil, because I know they have to do a lot in soil, right? So soil, and the 3 types of rock that you find in the soil. And I love earth science, but I'm still never gonna remember every single one. Like I remember sediment and metamorphic change and all that, but so if you're gonna put soil right here, what could English do? Could your science, drama if we had that, how would they be able to add that to something that they've got? Geography obviously is gonna be able to do it. Physical education, how? So start brainstorming. It doesn't have to be that many. You can change your bubbles into the specific SOLs. We all have access. One of the reasons I asked you to bring your laptop, we all have access to the SOLs for all of your contents. I can see all the world geography, I can see all the earth science, I can get to English. I know exactly what your students are supposed to learn, when they're supposed to learn it. We all do. So if you were ever wondering, I wonder what Honor is teaching in world geography this week. I'm gonna go ahead and hop on there. And then once you see, wait a minute, she's talking about climate and maps. So Woods is able to go, hey, if we pulled up a climate map of the United States last year at this time, and I made them do math equations that had to do with it, they'd run back to McGrath and be like, did you know that he's doing it? And that's what we're doing? And they would be so shocked. They wouldn't even know what to do, because for a lot of them, they haven't seen it. Here we have our theme or concepts, and then you decide which you're gonna use. You obviously don't have to do multiple contents. You can do 1 or 2, or just pick one. There's nothing wrong with just saying, I'm gonna have them write about what they learned in my class and Ms. Boyle's class. And that's the first step. It doesn't hurt. You know, then move on and go, hey Willis, what are you guys doing next unit? Oh, we're, volcanoes. Really?
At my last job, I spoke with science teacher and math and geography, just like you were saying. We thought of maybe starting a garden in the school. We never got permission, but having
I would love that.
I know, because the kids learn a real life skill. They can get a job,
Yes.
the landscape.
Yes.
That's good.
They can do the science, you know. They have to measure, so math comes into that.
Yeah.
And there's physical, you know, they're gonna be digging and planting.
They have to set goals and meet those goals,
Yes.
just like we want to for our special education students to meet those goals.
Yeah, and then they can probably have to do a lab report for science.
Oh, yeah.
They can keep a journal of the progress,
Yep.
and eventually do a report, and then whatever the other teachers want them to do.
And that's one of those things that I think would be great if we could do it. I'm not sure if we can or not, if we had like a sunbox or something that we might be able to do. But that's why I wanted us to take that field trip to the urban farm that I went to in Richmond. Just the idea that in the inner city of Richmond, I mean, like hardcore Richmond, there was a farm on donated land, donated $1 for the lease for the year, you know. But this woman was so into it, and everything was there. No fertilizers, no nothing. It was just open.
It was organic.
Everything's everything there, and I've got the pictures, and if we could take the children and do it, and then open it up to everybody in the building, come up with something that you think could be a good project, because just going in itself is a learning experience. So if they've got like a scavenger hunt or whatever, and each thing is a different content, they don't have any idea how many things they're really learning right now.
And a lot of them have never seen a vegetable growing,
No.
you know, in a garden. Or
Yeah, I
where
showed
does that
them,
radish come from?
From farm to plate.
Yeah.
What was the name of it? I forget the name of it, but it doesn't look like a regular eggplant. It's the one that looks like a banana.
Is it a
Japanese eggplant. So they had that inside their greenhouse, right? Their high top is what they're called, the big, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And you looked at them, and we were all going, because we were just taking pictures of because it's not shaped the way that you would think. And,
Right.
and the fact that they grow food year round because they have the high tops and they can grow. And the kids could ask a million questions, and since they're privately funded and they sell to local cafes and stuff, they've got tons of time to teach the kids about anything they want to know. And the kids can leave with food. Yes.
That's awesome.
Cooking skills.
Yep. Just the life skills that you can get from something small, like visiting an urban farm. And then, you know, for world geography, they would do the difference between urban and rural, and why someone would want to bring rural into urban. What is the point? We can go to the grocery store. What's at the grocery store? GMO, Green Revolution. I mean, it is amazing the things that you can do. So I saw this and I thought this was one of those perfect things, right? Because you look at it,
It's a brain.
and you've got a brain, you've got lungs, you've got a tree, right? You've got all the different things that it could possibly, you've got separation, you've got both sides of a story. So just putting this up in an English class, you could write for an hour about the different things that you see here. Put that up in the science class and say, what do you see that's world geography here? And the kid's gonna be like, well, the mountains in the back, so this must be where you can grow crops. Where's their water source? How are they irrigating? Math, is that symmetrical? What percentage is missing from the center of the tree? Why do you think it's missing? Why do some people see a brain and some people see lungs when they look at it? What do you think was most important to them when they looked at it? Why is that tree all by itself? Even I stared at this for a good 5 minutes, thinking of all the different questions that I could ask myself over it. You know, ask the kids what they might see, like the blot, the psychological blot. Yeah, the ink, yeah. Just ask the kids if it's photoshopped. Bring some CTE in there. What could you do to make this not look like that anymore? Put it into the computer, send it to the kids, and ask them to try and Photoshop it back into a regular tree.
It's casting a shadow of that.
And this is one lesson. They would come into every single classroom, and this would be their do now. And it would have a question with your content on the top. This is one lesson. It's going to take 20 minutes of your block, and we've just hit 7 different contents.
And you can make a tree grow that way too, by tying limbs.
Exactly. So how much time would it take if a tree grows at this rate and you were to put 1 tie on it per day? At what rate would it take for this to grow like this? How many years is it going to take? How many
Bond size too, because you know they're
the bond? Yeah, you clip and you do. I believe that the true learning that happens with the students needs to happen with us as well. And so we have to open ourselves to more possibilities and see that it's not just coming in and following this, you know, plan of lessons and things that we do, the state gives us. It's finding ways to make it meaningful so they want to keep coming back tomorrow. All right, so what do you think? What problems do you see? How about that?
Knowing if and when the standards line up, so we're following the curriculum at the same time.
Yeah. Because you do take the time to go and you look at World Geography's SOL and you see, oh man, they do Latin America. And we're doing this one story that's about South America and like this guy who ends up, And then you find out that you've got to do the story in September and you're not doing South America until February. And you're like, oh, you know, not knowing what the SOLs are really. I mean, I looked at his SOLs, which by the way are the smallest out of all of us. He's got this tiny little SOL packet for Algebra 1 because they say they have to do fractions and equations and and that's it, like it's listed. And so he has to take this one and I think spend a month on it basically, and they've got to know what this is. So his is very small, whereas like Willis's may be smaller than Honor's because you're gonna spend so long on this one task. Honor's are extremely detailed because it's the world. And so it's like you have to know about this map and this climate and this, so it's like it's a huge packet. And then science, this is 9th and 10th grade, is huge as well because the concepts keep going and keep going. And of course, poor Mr. Daniel,
everywhere.
You're everything. You have special ed. They don't have an SOL for you. They have goals and objectives. And so you have to be the master of all. You're a Renaissance man. And you have to be able to understand every content and how to adapt things. And my favorite part about you being here is that we can use your expertise to say, this would be the best project for my class. And when you look at it, all you're going to see is the kid that has a struggle with this, the kid that excels at that part, and you're gonna be able to give us some help. How do I adapt this? How do I change this? How do I do just this one little part?
Right.
And the project doesn't have to be a one encompassing project. It can be so multifaceted that they had to choose 3 of the 10 things to do. And so they're able to pick, you know, what it is that they're gonna do.
Well, you know, the unique thing is, in my teaching, is how can we connect these dots? And it's always cross, because sometimes, word problem in math, they will see the word problem and won't see the math.
Yeah.
That's some students. Some students see the math and can't see the word problem.
Yep.
But it's connecting them. I mean, and then even with science, you know, it's the same thing.
Yep.
So it's like, how do you connect the dots in reference to something else, and you bring other situations, other subjects in
Yes.
to your teaching for that particular subject that you're teaching at the time to connect it. So
And the other good thing to me is we all have different relationships with the students. We all build our relationships with the students in a different way. I'm more of the mom to my kids, right? And that's fine. And Mr. Woods might be the dad to the kids, and it, you know, it might be an aunt or whatever. However you structure your classroom, you have a different relationship. So if we're trying to get this project achieved, and it's happening across multiple classrooms, you might get a different view when you're collaborating with your team. Hey Willis, let's go ahead and work on this one, because I need them to understand that. And you'll go, oh, you know, he really doesn't like to do this. Well, I never knew that. Thank you for telling me that, because now that I know he doesn't like to do that, we can tailor it. Let me get Daniel and ask him if he can help me figure out how to change this project to help a kid that doesn't like to do that. And then we're talking, because you know, you meet as a team once a week, twice a week, and you don't really get very much done in that small amount of time we meet. But if we take the time during a planning or after school or on the phone or Skype, whatever we're gonna do, and we find a way to talk to each other about the kids and the content, we'll find out some really good things. We really will. Any ideas that right now that you can think of just off the top of your head that would be able to be implemented just next week? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like the garden idea. I know
I
we
do
just
too.
kind of threw it out
There's a
there.
whole
Yeah.
Alice Waters, you know who she is? She started the urban gardens. in
Oh, yes,
California,
yes.
And cookbooks.
Okay, so we can use that as a
So I-
resource maybe?
Yeah, I
Oh, yeah.
researched it so I could write a proposal. But they didn't like it.
The World Geography Weekend that I went on, because you know it's the Virginia Geographic Alliance pays for these wonderful weekends, and I got sent home with a ton of electronically driven information. And so we went to Virginia State University's farm that's in Richmond, and we got to see the hydroponics and everything. It was like 100 pictures. So we could preload the kids with what they might be seeing at this urban farm.
Yeah.
And then when we take them, we figured out what it is that we're gonna do. Get permission, because we've got the 2 white buses. If we can get 2 people to drive it, wait till November, because Mr. Hester's able to do it. We could go for basically free, maybe $40 in gas at most. And since so many kids are going, all the teachers could go, there's no subs needed. I mean, this would be a genuine experience that we could get all across the board. Any other ideas? Yep.
I like that idea, because I garden and
Oh, yeah.
I have to fit my plants within the area that I have.
And that's what these people, they have 2 little plots, and it's really used to be an apartment building that got torn down. And so they're able to have this land and grow it and adapt it, and it's just awesome. It really is.
You gotta read each of the little tags to see how much space each plant needs.
Yep.
Then you have to measure the
Right.
plants, the distance.
Yep.
Right.
And then they had to find out what the community wanted, because Hardywood Brewery is there, and they have a gingerbread stout. And they do, they actually, I have a picture of it. They grow hops for the local breweries.
Yeah, cool.
And, but they were growing some ginger, because the gingerbread stout, well, they sourced from a local farm that was about half an hour away. Hardywood paid for the 2 full-time farmers at the urban, it's called Tricycle Farm, paid for them to go to that farm to find out how to grow ginger. They came back, and in one of their high tops, they're growing ginger and turmeric, because they know they'll be able to sell it to the local community. So they're doing what their community is asking, and I just.
I'm gonna think out the box for a second.
Okay.
When you talked about the landmines, it kind of had me thinking in reference to our students.
Yes.
our students in reference to survival. Because they live on survival and skills it takes for them to survive, and that's sometimes how they react and treat each other based on surviving out in the streets. So in reference to the survival landmines, I was saying, God, wouldn't that be interesting? All the skills and curriculums that we bring together to understand how do you survive this landmine. Because this situation that's in front of you is another landmine, and that's a landmine. So you bring in the science, you bring in the math, you bring in the English, and so this kind of like subject that you bring up or a paragraph that you read that entitles all this, like you say, the temperature, the soil, things like that. I just thought that was unique.
That's really cool.
It is.
You know, survive, because you'll get down because that's what they live
That's what they
on.
know.
Yeah, that's what they know.
And I think one of the key things that whenever I think cross curriculum, I don't know, I do this often, and I think it might be a personality flaw, but I will see something and understand it and see all of its different components, and then I just think everybody else does too.
It's not hard.
I mean, right? Like, I mean,
A lot of people don't.
I do the same thing.
right?
It's
Like,
not fun.
I look at it and I go, well, yeah, obviously. And then someone's next to me like, well, how did you see that? And then even as I'm explaining it, they're not grasping what it is that I'm grasping, and they're seeing it from a different view. And so I think that a lot of times we have these expectations of our students. Well, yeah, mom taught you that. Yeah, you learned that. That's 5th grade. I told the kids before, I was like, dude, we're doing China in 10th grade. You learned this in 2nd grade. There was a whole unit on it. And they're like, 2nd grade, Miss McGrath. You remember 2nd grade? I don't remember what I ate yesterday. You know, and I'm going, right. Like, I just assume people have the background knowledge or understand it or see it the way I do, and they don't. And so for the kids, like you said, is just the landmine activity in one class, multiple classes throughout the day, and they're gonna see it the way we would have seen it. I'm an adult, I am well educated, and I know there's a landmine right there, and I've already assessed everything that you just spent a week teaching me. You didn't know that. You didn't even have the skills to know it. And that's the other thing is, are we gonna give them something that we just assume they had the skill for? Because our kids are so transient. I have someone just entered my US history class today. He doesn't even know that we're from England. Like, he didn't get that part.
Right.
So when I'm talking to the rest of the kids about how, well, we want to throw off the English thing, and he's like, well, not the Spanish king or whatever, and I'm like, no, Spain with it. But I can't approach it as like, come on, man, why don't you know this?
Right.
You haven't been in school so far.
Yeah.
So we would have to look, Mr. Woods, do your kids understand how to do this? Have you gone over it? And you'd be like, now that I know they know. All right, cool, we can put that into the project. So it's more than just looking at the SMLs and saying, let's do this. And that's that other problem. What about fears? What do we fear is, I mean, what's stopping you fear, then what is it?
Well, it's the fear from a teacher's perspective of the kids aren't gonna like it, they're not gonna do it, they're gonna put their foot down, and then you have the students' fears of, I can't do this. I don't know how to do it. I don't, there's too much going on, there's too much,
We're all gung-ho when we say this is gonna be great, and the kid looks at it and goes, dude, this is huge. You want me to do what? And then we list all of the learning targets of what's gonna happen over it, and they're like, 17 sentences here. Like, I'm gonna do all this, I can't do all this.
And they quit.
And they quit.
before they
don't come to school now, when you were trying to make them come to school, And so do you not tell them? Do you not prepare them for what they're going to learn and just give them experience? Well,
I would do small increments.
that's what I'm thinking. You can't not tell them, because the whole point of giving a learning target is to be able to say, this is what you should be able to do at the end of the day.
And I think
Chunk
the other
it.
thing too is, I think we should expose them to everything, because the reality is you're gonna have pressure anyway.
Yeah.
And so the question is, will they come to you and know that you're support? And do they know that you're support? That's the question, because it's gonna come, nothing's easy.
Are they feeling that it's way too complicated in science aspect of it when they're in your room, and so they look like they're doing what everybody else is doing, and then when they come in my room, I'm never gonna get an A on the science part. And then you're like, calm down, I'm right here. Like, let's talk about what it is. Let's go to Miss Willis, she's off 7th block. Let's just say he's really not getting it, but he felt like he couldn't say anything. And of course, we're all very accommodating, we're always here to help, but they won't speak up. They might not speak up. They don't know how to speak up for themselves and all that. So, yeah, I mean, we can want the best, but I've done some lessons. Them kids have been like, Ms. McGrath, this is totally whack.
But it's
Work
like
hard
you
on
said
this.
earlier, when you had this project and you said, let me just see some examples. It's-
Some models.
They go back now and say, preachers are the best teachers.
Yes.
Because one thing they are very good storytellers.
Yes.
So when you can pull students in by telling them a story, even before they know the content, and you start pulling them in based on that, and now you start hitting them with content.
Yep.
They don't even know the content is hitting with them, or 17, they don't care, because you're kind of like pulling them in first. So
Vegetables and a smoothie or something.
Yes.
For kids.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yes.
Any stories of when maybe you've tried it or you've seen it done correctly? Anybody have anything that they can share where they're like, well,
Cross-curriculum wise?
yeah, cross-curriculum. Like anytime that you've presented something, like you came up with an idea and you spoke to another teacher and said, this would be great if they could do this part in your class or something like that.
I don't think it would happen here, but in the bigger schools, a lot of the teachers don't want to collaborate. They do their thing, and they want to just do the thing they've been doing.
Yeah,
So-
and I think that's one of the reasons why this is so, while it's extremely meaningful and it's something we should all be doing, it's not being done because for some reason teachers feel that they teach in isolation and that they don't feel trained to do it.
But I've been in a big school, and I know science, when they're teaching the biologies, the chemistries, and when students don't have the skill set in the math, what they do, they come back on a negative end and come back to the math department and say, these kids do not have the skill to complete this work. I need your help.
I am guilty
Yes.
because I genuinely have looked at Mr. Lawrence before because my 11th graders are supposed to do a DBQ essay, document-based question essay. They should be able to look at a primary source and write about it and answer questions. And they can't write. And I look at Mr. Lawrence and I'm like, what is the English department teaching these children because they can't do an essay?
You know exactly
Yeah, but
what I'm
They
talking
can't do a
about.
sentence.
It's before they even get to
Right.
high school.
And that's
So
what it
many
is. And
factors.
I mean, and of course I was joking with Mr. Lawrence and I
Yeah.
didn't actually blame him, but I get frustrated that I have a kid in 9th, 10th, 11th grade that can't write a sentence correctly. And while it doesn't really matter to me if they can, because it's the concept and it's the importance that matters to me in social studies, writing a resume, like anything that you're gonna have to do, you have to be able to speak correctly and write in a profound way as an adult, and I feel like they cannot do it. And so shutting down, and I feel like that's one of the biggest things. The reading that we had in the class that I'm taking was they don't feel trained. Teachers do not feel that they get proper training. They get 45 minutes or an hour in order to learn some idea, and then it's just, okay, now go do it, and then nothing ever happens. That's why we are going to figure out a project to do. We're going to go and try and implement it. We're going to meet again in a month. We're going to have a survey sent out to tell me what you thought we could have done better. We're going to go over it again. And we're going to do this throughout the year if we have to until we've got it like the back of our head. Just like your latitude and longitude lines, you're going to know how to cross curriculum. And since you're all here willing to do this and willing to learn, then I know that you'll be there whenever we need to do a cross curriculum project. Now, if we can get the rest of the team on board, in a larger school, you're talking about 80 teachers, and 80 teachers might not, Mr. Woods has been here 22 years. So you are definitely our veteran teacher, and yet you're still sitting right here willing to cross-curriculum implement a lesson, and we've got 10, 15 years. Miss Willis, you've been teaching for 6 years.
Total 12.
12 years. Look at that. This is so many. Miss Honor is in her 2nd year of full-time teaching, and so you look at it and you just go, thank you. If this was forced on UPD, I can tell you right now, people are going to be doodling or but paying attention. People are going to check out. They're going to be having those side conversations that we always say things about. I think that a respectful environment where you're actively trying to learn, I applaud you.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on what you said, and that just what you were saying just led me to the thought, what is the goal? What is the goal? You know, is it to get to this end product, or is it to enjoy the journey along the way?
And I think that's important. Obviously, we want our kids to learn. Obviously, I know that you'd love to be able to say you've gotten your PD points and you've done this and you've implemented it, but if you put it in a closet and you don't use it again, have you genuinely learned anything? I mean, everything that I explained to you, you could technically leave and go do it on your own, but do you feel like you can? Do you feel completely armed with everything you need to go and do what you did? No, because we haven't even broken out into our sessions yet to talk about what we could do. So we're going to keep coming back to this, and we're going to make sure that you feel comfortable and that you can come to me or any one of us to say, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I'm not feeling it. Or, you know, McGrath always says these things, blah, 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 but no, I'm not feeling it. Which I do. But I did want to show you some project examples that I found. So this one is data and probability, Mr. Woods. They collect data, they create graphs, stem and leaf, bar graphs, histograms, line plots, and box and whisker plots. Distinguish the difference between adjectives and adverbs. They analyze data, and they write a report. So, and it says math nerds, but I mean, like, the idea is it's on statistics, but it includes writing. And so that's perfect to me. They're going to have to do research, so they have to do reading. You know, research is part of, you know, literacy, and that's one of those goals that we have for professional development in our district. The Dream Vacation Project, actually, we do this here. Mr. Hester?
Yes, he does.
And Miss Harris-Williams, they do this for CTE. Sports and marketing has to do, like, the football tickets to the Super Bowl, and then she does one of these Dream Vacation projects, and you're given a budget, and you have to include all of the things that are necessary, all of the sheets. You have to decide what it's going to be, and I do one as well. I stopped doing one when I realized Miss Harris-Williams had the same students as me, and I started using a little bit with her. I was like, bring yours to me, and now, what time of the year are you going? What's the climate going to be like? They have to do, what's the history of the area? Because I want you to look at yourself in the mirror. Can you go to this country and be safe?
When are we leaving?
And when are we leaving? Yes. Are you taking me with you? Because you need a bigger budget. I eat. So, Hunger Games Design and Arena, which I thought was awesome, because I can definitely tell you when Miss Honor was 11th grade English, she tried to bring in all of the books that she knows the kids like. And right now, totally into dystopian futures, right? The kids love the dystopian futures. That is big for me, because I have to talk about U.S. history and world history, and trust me, at every point in history, someone has thought the end is coming. And so I can talk about it. We talk about like a zombie apocalypse, because I'm trying to explain what it was like after this, or at this time, or whenever there's a drought, or when they had to move. This is what it feels like. What would it be like? What would our government be? So if they have to read, if they have to write, if they have to work together, they have to. This is about water resources. How much water does the human body need? How often are you going to have to drink? How much are you going to bring with you? How are you going to clean it? Is just boiling water mean that you can drink it? Because I'm pretty sure no. Like, if I remember that. I teach my students the rule of 3. You know, survival. It's you can go 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm going, I'm not crazy. I promise you. Like, you can do this. And they eventually ask me, is Kool-Aid count? I'm like, oh, whatever. It's calories. So, but I found this one and I thought it was great, because inside, when you truly look at it, every subject was in here, because gym was added as well. It was how many calories will be put out when all you get is this much water, this much food rationed to you. What would happen if, you know, the entire government fell and you were forced to do? It's crazy how this could go on for 2 months.
Or longer.
You know, yeah, because you could have started reading it in English when you're supposed to, and then my SOL lines up, and now we ask this, and Miss Willis is about the body and the way the organs work. And then all of a sudden it's PE talking about health and nutrition in the second. So you've got this running project that they don't realize, well, didn't you read the Hunger Games? Well, let's talk about, didn't you see the Hunger Games? And I think it helps, because then it's not a whole bunch of new information, it's stuff they already are really good at.
Just connect.
Yeah, just connecting and showing them that those connections matter. When I teach, I will bring up Miss Willis's name often. I'll be like, well, I'm pretty sure in Miss Willis's class, you guys are gonna have to touch some dirt. You have to figure out what's inside that dirt. You're gonna mess with a worm, and they go, oh, and I will bring other people into it because I want them to see other teachers matter. I mean, social studies is really awesome, but you know, everybody matters, and everything that happens is going to happen. And Mr. Daniel will be right in his room, ready for those kids that need to come in and work on it. And he's been in here planning with us, and he's ready to go. He says, I know exactly what Ms. McGrath expects of you and what Mr. Woods wants, and so let's work on it. Let's go. We can do it. So that was the end of the PowerPoint. I tried to make it short and sweet, and I'm glad that we had a lot of discussion, but now we needed to get into it. So you brought your SOL statistics for where they were failing and what strands they were failing in for last year. You've got your current SOLs and your curriculum, so you're going to be able to match up wherever things are. I've got plenty of highlighters for if you want to highlight, you know, if you think yellow is English and you think maybe English will match up with this, you guys can talk about it. And then you were supposed to survey your students before you came to see how they like to learn, and then give them like a pre-SOL to see where they were struggling. So if you grab that data that you have, then we'll put everything together and we'll try and figure out what do we need to attack in each content, and then we're going to create a project. So I know that Miss Boyle needs to stay right here so that she doesn't unplug, but if you guys wouldn't mind coming together and seeing what we can do, you can either find one partner if you're only comfortable with one person right now, or we can all get together in a group.
How about we make a little circle?
Let's make a little circle. It sounds good to me. Will it be Socratic?
Only if you say so.
Circle the wagons, I love it. We'll hand these out to everybody and use what you want to use. I'm visual, as I said, so I do a lot of, you know, highlighting and putting things all together and whatnot. But, oh yeah, you good. I promise I did a whole bunch of research before I started bringing this up, and so I do have every single one of these that I printed out. I'm going to send them to you electronically, but these are all the different things that talk about how to cross-curricular, including the fact that our Virginia Department of Education gives a lesson. It's only for the second grade, but they've created a cross-curricular second grade lesson. And so I got this one because I wanted you to see that the VDOE even knows. Now, the UK is really taken off with cross-curricular. They're more Montessori themed, they're more cross-curricular, you know, that's how they're getting to the top. But I wanted you to see how the project-based learning and the cross-content and all of this, how important it really is. Because they've done study after study and they have found how important this is, I'm telling you. Look at that. To fund it. Give us a little bit of extra money, we'll stay after, and we will do this. So, all right, what do we got?
All right, so looking at strengths, weaknesses,
science for
that can be pretty basic.
This, I guess, would be,
you can do something
what you have here, so this is
identifying relationships, analyze factors and effects, climate, investigation, science,
complex interactions of our systems. Really just systems in general.
Have a grant to report mandated research, analyze and
and then geospatial technological evidence to identify
This one falls under the second.
Oh yeah, almost everything falls under this one, yeah, how important it is. So if we're gonna make this like one lesson, or two lessons, or it depends on what it is, Ms. Willis would be able to work on, you know, climate.
Right, so then what I think I would probably say, it was, what would be like, formula if we go along identifying potential relationships or points. And then I would talk to Phyllis about analyzing factors and actions.
So you're saying they just it's not like
learning is
one thing.
when
It's
it's
an
done,
answer.
we'll come back together. and we'll
Okay,
kind of
so, you know, as we said earlier,
what we're learning.
looking at,
Right.
identifying
And
quality
see what
data that might be,
Yeah.
Is what students are getting from it.
that
Yeah.
can,
Do they see how the connections are?
Just
and
initially.
just understanding it,
Mhm,
being
I like
able
that.
to identify, go beyond
I think one time I remember
identifying
Miss
it,
Willis
just
doing
being able to analyze
she
the
had the
data
2-liter
that's
bottles.
there.
I think she knew how to offer she
There,
was
now,
very
it's there.
upset.
It was so
And so
stressful.
everybody was very
But
mindful
talking
of
about,
that.
Yeah,
And
just
she
showing the
was
shoes
able to
$25.
do different
$25
settings, each one with what plant grows in it. And the kids could use it
Must have made an idea.
where on the planet would that
Yeah,
be.
that's good, cause they can break
And then
down.
Where they ain't gonna see themselves, and I see a lot of times,
It's like,
you
what's
know,
the
I show
probability
them in
that
scale,
if an animal from here
whatever
goes
days
here
they
to
have,
survive and how long,
I use their
Yeah.
Which is good.
I
Right,
change.
But yeah, I think that's.
I say so, it's
Because
like
if they,
James.
what is it?
James
Just
went to the
observations
store,
there.
and they're thinking it's me, so they don't want me, they ain't gonna let me do it, so they know that James now could be the main idea, just read, you know. Just
I like that. I didn't think about
a sense
it.
of association.
Are your kids doing science fair stuff
And then
this year?
Cause I'm big.
They can. I know that you-
What's your sister name? What's your mom's name?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking, when the kids come up with all of their different science fair project ideas, that abstract that they have to write would be one of those English things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then, you're gonna help them with their hypothesis and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
if they had to do something in relation to like a biome or an area, world geography is working on the different areas of the world. And so perhaps they would do their research on that area in here, and then come back to you, and then they're able to really work on that part.
And then they could go to English
So
and put it
this
all
is
together
more-
and
Right.
write it out.
Right, I like that, I'm gonna
Breaking
put
down
that as an idea, I think that will work, I think that will work.
Cause I know they struggle so many of my friends that are science teachers say they struggle because the kid has to do everything at home
They do.
because there's no time. And like, I know in my class all the projects happen in the classroom because I can't trust that it's gonna go home and actually come back. And so they do it here and it takes up so much time. I think it'd be great if we could get little parts of the science project done in different classrooms. You know, cause usually there's a measuring aspect to it. There's like a climate, a temperature, so they would have to be able to say what would happen if this environment changed by 10 degrees, and that'd be a new calculation, so that they could work on with you, yeah.
Sure. Okay, it's a great idea, Kat.
Yeah, okay, so that would work for this one right here. If you
Alright.
decide they wanna go buy it.
We really do.
American, because they can understand it.
Mr. Daniel,
Yes.
we were thinking about a science fair project that they could start in Miss Willis's room, and it would have to do with like different biomes from around the world, and it would have to do with fluctuations in temperature, what happens to the plants. So they would write
We
the
got so much in
abstract in
common over here.
English, they'll do the math in Mr. Woods, they're gonna make it a science project with her, but, you know, Darwin is in that one class, and I'm worried about his ability to write that abstract and to read those really difficult research projects. What do you think I could do to?
I was just speaking with her about it.
Correct, mathematical terms. Yep.
It's almost, we have to put them in the picture,
Okay.
you know, and I ask like, what's your brother's name? What's your cousin's name? Who's somebody you really like? And so I associate their names now in the story in reference to connected, and I let them write it themselves in reference to the story and connect those dots. That's one way they can remember more because they know stories about themselves.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a good way to connect dots and you can bring it more together.
Yeah, I like that, I agree. I mean, it almost like
might
you could
enjoy it.
do,
But
like let them orally tell, you know, I mean, I'm sure Miss Willis wouldn't take points off if the abstract was done orally, just because he doesn't write very well. You know, and so he can work on what he should say and he'll write it down, but he'll probably read it out on video.
Watch this, and that's amazing because a lot of times if you ask them to write it out, they stop there quick.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you this, put a tape recorder in front of them
Yeah.
and say, hey, just say the story.
Just tell
Watch
them.
this, rap the story.
Oh, yes.
You won't be able to shut them up.
I
So watch
agree.
this.
I agree.
You won't be able to shut them up, baby. I
Great, that's
want
Yeah.
it to hear, you know, so
Yeah.
just connecting them to what you want to do in a way that they can what? Enjoy it,
Yes, yes.
learn it, because you just don't want to teach it, you want them to obtain it, so they can, well, that's the problem we have with our kids. I was just telling her that is sometimes they're reading, they don't even understand the words they're reading,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, they don't.
And you're thinking, as you said before, what? Oh, you should have learned this in second grade. No, I'm in 11th grade. I have no clue what we're talking about.
Yep.
One other idea we can add, in addition to what you two have said, sentence starters. So often we forget about those
Right.
sentence starters.
Yes.
Using those, because yes, the student may have the story inside of them, and perhaps they can write it, but hey, if you give them a little head start, hey, I can write the rest.
Yeah.
And so providing that, you mentioned this earlier, providing a model, that's a form of a model too, not just something that's, inanimate and large and apparatus like, but a sentence structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, it's so amazing, because, I'm a coach, and I have 15 young men, and they rap 24/7. And I'm telling you, if you say rap about this floor, they'll make up a rap in a New York second.
Yep.
If you ask them what happened in a geometry class, they couldn't tell you what this floor was. Couldn't tell you what type of slope, zero, or, they couldn't tell you. They couldn't tell you if it was horizontal or vertical, but they can make a rap. So if you gave them some word clues and say, okay, this is, floor, this is zero slope, put this into a rap. You'd be surprised what you get. But how many teachers really would think out the box and say, okay, let's, you know what, we're gonna do a project.
Yeah.
And this project is gonna include this. And these are the words that you have to use. And these words, you put these the meaning of the words, and they take it and say, just put it in a rap song for me.
Yep.
Some people say, oh, how you pronounce that? Give me a beat.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things we do good here. We do well here. English teachers get me. And one of the things we do well here is that we do have to think outside of the box. Like, at the end of the year, I do a history of rap, because it helps the kids see what were they rapping about.
Okay.
Like, how old are they now? So when did they start? What were their problems they were rapping about back then? Who was their audience? How many of these type of people were watching it and stuff? Where are they now? Like, what's their life like now? MC Hammer's broke.
Are they getting paid?
Right? Like, are they still getting paid? Was it just a one-time thing? What do you think? And then they look at the clothing, the rap that started in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, how it changed, and it helps them. And then they have to write a rap about any unit that we've learned in history. And they love going to Abe Lincoln. That's their thing. The Civil War and Abe Lincoln, they will do, or World War II, they'll do all day. And the idea that you'd be able to use it.
I have a prompt. It's how has hip hop changed?
Yes.
What is it, like 40, 50 years now since the beginning?
48.
Yeah. So is it still about the people, or is it about the money and the image now?
And I do that, yes. And Miss Harris Williams for CTE, for Econ and Finance, she's done that, where she said, look at the people who made money back when it was black and white TV. I've brought it up to the students where I said, you understand that entertainers used to sing for their supper literally. They would travel around the kingdom and they would be able to perform, and that would get them fed and a night's sleep. And now, one of my students today was like, yeah, they spend $1 million on bling. I'm like, exactly. They have teeth that cost more than my house. So.
But how do you build on that? How do you build instead of waiting until the end of the year? If they are doing good there, how do you build from the beginning that you build this up? Because ultimately you want to learn the subject matter. Ultimately you want to be able to cross this. And how do you do that early? And it's more so kind of like to have them grow.
Right.
Because we don't want the same thing happen to them when they leave us as they came to us.
Exactly.
No, I have not a clue. I don't know. I haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
I learned how to pass that test just for the day, but I forgot everything you want.
Exactly.
So how do you?
Very good.
I think it's two things. It's this collaboration right here, where we're constantly keeping each other informed as to what it is that we're teaching and when. Even if it was just like on the back of my syllabus, I do the unit names and when in the semester it's happening. And so even if you all had a copy of my syllabus for my classes, you'd be able to see, oh, she's doing something in the Middle East on this week. That's that desert atmosphere that they have to, anything, and we communicate, and then it's the follow-up data. I had, the lead teacher over at Warwick had emailed me when one of our students, David had left here and gone back to Warwick, and he'd been with us for almost 2 years because of the court proceedings and things. And she said he passed his test so well. And this kid came to us and wouldn't keep his head up. He wouldn't come to school. He wouldn't pick a pen up. He wouldn't do anything. And over a 2-year period, we got a kid that passed his very first SOL, and it was in world history. And that to me was the best data on the planet.
Yeah,
He got a 402, but he passed it.
But what I'm curious is what triggered him to learn and to know and retain. It was interesting. I did a transition inventory on a student we just got. And I said, what area do you want to improve upon? And you said, they're very transparent. He says, I want to become a better rapper. I was like, okay.
And what they're saying is, I want to be a better storyteller.
Yes.
Because the thing is, they have something that they're creative and doing.
So tell me the story you learned today in
starting
geography.
With that, right? And then there's something within them. They have possession of a talent.
Yes.
They may not know what it is. That's okay.
Yeah.
This is discovery time.
As I might have shared or I didn't share, my son who graduated from Virginia State with an engineering degree, he moves to Atlanta, has a job lined up. 2 months later, he comes home, and I said, hey, I know you start your job soon. How everything going? He says, well, Dad, I'm not going to go to that job. I'm gonna become a rapper.
Oh. He said, what?
I'm going to become. My wife almost passed out.
I would have.
So I looked at him. I said, you know what?
Yeah, he got a message.
I said, listen. Okay, that's fine. Rap for me.
That's what father would do. That's the right
rap for me.
There you go.
Whatever you need to be successful. Somebody get a beat. Some other area. The whole house was quiet. Well, he couldn't come up with a rap. He didn't say nothing. So I'm like, so my wife was like, she's depressed. So I'm like, it'll be fine. Because we always tell her, and this is the truth, whatever you do, just be the best at it. But chase what you want to chase. And sometimes this is what these kids do. So they're in your class, they're in my class, and you're right. How can we connect these dots? How can we bring these subjects together so they'll remember what happened here and there and bring it together? And they have this SOL test in front of them, and they're connecting them based on what? Experience.
Yep. And then one of the things that I say, maybe in the regular schools, but one of the things that I tell the students here, I went to my 9-year-old's in 3rd grade.
Okay.
And I went to his open house or whatever, the parent-teacher conference night, and she's explaining how things are done, and all of a sudden it's just, so hopefully the kids will be getting A's and B's, maybe some C's, and I was like, exactly, and he's in one of those all-gifted classes, and so you heard the parents going, yes, A's, they're going to be getting A's, maybe a B, and I'm the one that's a teacher going, and C's are average, and C's are okay, and so I think it's instilled in me here, because like you said, whatever you're going to do, be the best at it, and what we say to our students is, whatever you do, be the best you can be.
Yes.
Because I'm never going to be the best at anything.
No.
I'll put my foot down right now, I never will. But I'm going to be the best I can be, or at least I'm going to be better than I was yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, and the best you.
That's me, right?
You.
That's the best I
we
can
gotta
be.
The best us.
Yes, I can't expect anyone to be the best of what I
Did you say
can.
best you?
Yeah, we have no comparison, because we all, and that's why it's so key that we all bring our part, because we can't do what each other do.
Right.
Exactly.
We gotta feel the
Like in
stakes.
sports, there's the concept of just a personal best.
Yes. Yes.
I have a company, surprise you say, I have a company, it's called BU. It's called Ball Up.
Yeah.
So when things ain't going good, ball up. Be the best you can be.
Nice.
So that's surprise you said that. But that's, the whole key is how can we connect these dots for these students so they can retain what we're teaching them, not just today, but for tomorrow, and they can use it in real life. Somehow we have to connect that to them every day when they come into our class, because if we're not, they're going to lose it. They're going to fail.
And I have to be the administrator in training at this point and say, and you're going to hate the word because I know as a teacher I hate the word, we need data.
Oh.
We've got to get some data. We do. I don't mean a test, but how are we going to know that they're getting it? We're going to give them a survey, even if it's a quick, what did you think of this one?
Yes.
What part of it didn't you really like? They didn't really like the math part of it. Well, then we'll tune it down a little
Yeah.
so that they're just practicing a small skill. Because obviously Mr. Woods knows that they need those small skills because we're building in math.
Right,
They don't even have that.
both were talking
Yeah.
about that, yes.
So if we can gauge them as we do the project, even throughout the project, what they like, what they don't like. And of course, the first one they might buck at because, you know, they don't like the idea of having to work with everybody. But give them another one and another one. Imagine if part of what we did here was collaboration. That's on our assessment, right? That's our TDEP, is getting better at collaboration and providing opportunities for the students to collaborate. And so imagine if we could gather data as we do multiple projects and collaborative learning throughout the year and see this works really well, this one doesn't. Every class has a different personality. So what works in one class might not be in the other one. And then you'd be able to see the student reaching those goals. Slowly but surely. It would be noticeable in the IEP. It would be noticeable in the grade improvement, in the behavior improvement. We have our SOAR program. That would be influenced by this. So I think that if we can send the kids off better than when they got here, and we have concrete data, that's the missing link in showing administration what we do here. Because their SLO scores go back to their regular school, and there's no way to gauge that we really helped them. Because we did, we helped them. But how can you say it? Well, they didn't go back to jail. Like, they didn't. They turned it around. They graduated. We had, what, 12 kids graduate?
Yeah, it was quite a few.
That was huge.
But it went under the school's umbrella in reference to their graduation rate.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Just to see improvement is important thing.
It really is, and that's what it is. The improvement in attendance and everything else, you know. That,
And a lot of those kids were on a track for failure, you know, to.
You know, and now, and I think our biggest challenge, if we can implement, you know, this cross-content learning this year and start gauging the data and getting all of it and showing, it's gonna be great, but our new law and our 45 days are gonna hurt us in our effort.
Yeah, because it's gonna be like cut short.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're getting a lot of our court kids, so they'll be here for months, but the 45 days, I've already got a couple kids be like, oh, well, I'm not gonna be here when that comes around. I'm not gonna worry about the trip.
But let me say this, and I take it like this. When they first said the 45 days to me, I saw it different.
Yes.
Oh, I saw it as a good thing.
Yeah, I saw it as a good thing for not only teaching, but I saw it for the students because I thought now we have to have a sense of urgency in reference to forming habits. And you say, how long does a habit take? You do a habit
28 days?
2 weeks, depends on the strength of the
so if you create great habits in 45 days, that's more than enough time to get a kid turned around. But now our energy has to be different.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
When the tunnel was only 45 days away, that's easier than saying it's 360 days away.
Yes.
And when I first realized it was 45 days, as a mother and an educator, I was approving of it because the schools have to do more or whatever. Here, I was like, oh, well, that's nice because they won't get so settled in their ways and they think they can run things. But then from this aspect, the idea that we have this wonderful idea that we can start doing more cross-curricular projects and engaging the data on how well the kids are collaborating, there's only so many you can get done in a 45-day period. So for that aspect, I'm gonna say data collection is gonna be hard because it's gonna be this transient population where you're like, my fourth block did so much better, but they changed every 45 days. So it'll be a bit difficult, I think.
But developing a process with that, I mean, it could trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it could trigger here, and next thing you know, it might just be Denby.
Yeah.
Then it could leave Denby and go to Heritage.
Positive way of
Then,
looking at that.
then you can, next thing you know, what you did here, Enterprise, is all around the city.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what I would like to see. I would like to see us be the model for how things are handled. Yeah.